That in the email as well, so that we can pick up our members and help them out through this time.
Lori,
Yes.
just hit got it.
Thank you. Birthdays and anniversaries. You received your Skyliner this morning. And we are celebrating birthdays this week. Kim Brown and Nikki Foster are celebrating their birthdays on the 24th. Jeannie Clark is celebrating on the 21st. Diana Sullivan is celebrating on the 20th, and Jack Weeks is celebrating on the 25th. So happy birthday to our members. And anniversaries this week. Kevin and I are celebrating 22 years. Shane and Christy will be celebrating 31 years. And Fred and Christine, Andrea, will be celebrating 55. That's a milestone. I love it. We have no spouse birthdays and no member anniversaries to celebrate this week. And announcements, is Ken here? No. Don't forget the Halflet. He's gonna send out a sign-up list for volunteers, so please volunteer your time. It's a fun event to volunteer at. I love it. I do it every year. So look for his email to come out so that you can come out and join the fun. Christy, you want to tell us about Doc Smith?
That's just Lizzie.
Okay, Lizzie, okay.
She contacted me. All right, so about that time, Doc Smith Baskets. We have a challenge for our Rotarians in the room. We need bags of sugar. This is something we cannot get from the food bank. So we need, our goal is 135 of them. Okay. So all we're asking is that you put an extra one in your grocery cart and bring it to the meeting to have a basket where you can put them in. I think they're really awesome. Really appreciate it. And they don't even have to be like really big bags. Normal standard 4-pound bag. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. I did want to note, I put in the email that I sent out this week that if you are going to volunteer with youth in any capacity this year, please fill out a form. If you didn't get an email with this form attached, please let me know. I will be happy to send it to you, or email your information to Rachel Dodson. She's our youth chair, and she will put you on the list so that we can get a background check and we can follow all the rules that Rotary has for us to keep our youth safe as we're doing good things for Early Act, Interact, special projects. So please get that information to Rachel, or let me know if you need a form to get to her.
Lori,
Kate,
can I, two
Yes.
announcements?
yes.
Yeah. So one, I sent an email out yesterday, remember, if you saw it, one, we are accepting nominations now for the Douglas P. Stanley Service Above Self Award. So if you have somebody in mind that you'd like to nominate, it does not have to be a Rotarian. Last year we gave it to Bill Sharp, one of our own. The year before that, we gave it to John Vance. And if you recall, this is we discontinued or retired the Dr. Miller Award, and we recreated a new one in honor of Doug. So I think your board meeting is when? September or something?
Oh, that's well.
Early September. So if you can get to
Second
me,
Tuesday.
okay, so if you can get to me before the end of the month of August, so I can get those nominations to the board for their consideration. And then secondly, sponsorships. These sponsorships over here, I believe we raised over $30,000 in sponsorships last year. We are about a third of the way through right now of that. We're about $13,000 in commitment so far. Thank you all for those of you who said that you would. If you would like to be a sponsor, please let me know. We would love to have you. We want to make sure that these banners can get printed before the cash fair or the Halloween bash in October. And if you got an email, or in the email, you got the attachment, so you can go spread the word. And if you'd like to go out and help us find more sponsors, and John and Amber gave us the latest update of our community impact last year that you can then share with those potential sponsors to see where that money's going. I had a bit of an urgency because Dominion, who was a sponsor, is a sponsor. They asked for that updated list. So hopefully, maybe we'll get them from gold to platinum because of that, I hope. So anyway, those are the two things that I have.
All right. So speaking of that, Katie, would you like to come up and do your presentation, please? Shows all the great things that he was able to accomplish with the club this year.
So, I have Christy Monaco and are you coming forward? So many of you were probably in the meeting before when Tony came and spoke about Logomatica and their fun. Today we have this prettier version. Christy. So the club would like to thank you guys for connecting with our community and what we think. This is a check for that.
Oh, Lizzie, tell us about the board.
You have to hold the logo. Like a ring girl.
He's making sure you get a wall.
Okay. Happy dollars. Who's happy?
Our family continues to grow. I will have another granddaughter in December, Soleil and Ken are expecting. So we'll have 2 boys and 2 girls.
No more pass or boot.
This is for us as a whole, because the Logan Foundation means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Christy. Don't know, it was for her son that passed away in October and his one year coming up, so I know it's a hard year for her. But thank you guys for always like having everybody's back, always.
Listen, I didn't cry earlier.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I have a couple. I have a happy dollar for Katie, my daughter. She turns 21 today, so happy birthday. And I have 2 happy dollars for 2 of our guests who you're about to meet in just a second. All right. So, attendance report. Oh, hold on. Sorry, we got more. We're all happy.
I got $4 here for my 4 grandchildren who all left to go back to college. Senior Florida State, junior at West Texas A&M, sophomore at West Texas, and a freshman at Florida Atlantic. All right. Big time.
Nice. Okay, now attendance report.
President Lori, fellow Rotarians, today we have 22 in-person members, 2 visiting Rotarians, and 2 guests. And Lori, would you like to introduce your guests?
Yes. So today I have Ernie Hines and his son Alex here today. Ernie is as the past president of the Rotary Club of Hot Springs, Arkansas. He reached out to me and wanted to come. He's visiting Alex and wanted to come in today and participate with our club. So I'm very happy to have you both here. And my other guest is Katie, my daughter.
Happy birthday. We're going particular bar, it's fine.
Oh, okay. See, we got it covered. All right. Ernie brought a flag.
I did, yeah.
Yes. So let's exchange flags. That's great.
Home of Bill Clinton. I don't know if anybody have ever
Know
had
who that is.
Uh,
And we want to present a flag to you.
All right, let me get that picture of that.
Thank you. Okay, so Ernie's also here for another reason, because He is receiving a Paul Harris Fellow today. I'm going to share a little bit about him. Ernie was born in Germany and he immigrated to South Africa before his parents immigrated once again and settled in Michigan. Raised in Detroit suburbs, and later he received an athletic scholarship, earning both an undergrad and master's degree from Central Michigan University. He was employed as a teacher and a coach initially, but shortly thereafter was offered and accepted a position with Jostens, later relocating him to Roanoke, Virginia, where his son Alex was born. And 5 years later, he accepted a position with a competitor and relocated to Hot Springs, Arkansas. After retirement, he became the president and executive director of a nonprofit called the Faces Foundation. The Faces Foundation is an organization dedicated to providing facial and reconstruction surgery for children and young adults with facial deformities who would otherwise not have the resources to have the correctional surgery. Ernie and his wife, Vicki, have been married for 39 years. She is retired as the Director of Institutional Advancement at the Arkansas School for Mathematics, Sciences, and the Arts. As I said, Ernie's the past president of the Hot Springs National Park Rotary Club, and he is a multiple Paul Harris Fellow. Join me, Ernie, up here. And I can't leave Alex out because Alex is here today, so I know a little bit about Alex here too. Alex is 33, born in Roanoke, as you just heard. At the age of 3, they relocated to Hot Springs, and Alex was a member of local Boy Scouts, and he eventually became an Eagle Scout. Active in academics and sports, he was a member of the state championship science team, and he competed in a number of sports, including golf, tennis, and baseball. His senior year, he received a naval scholarship to the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, and upon graduation became a naval officer. He's an all-around outdoorsman. He's an avid skier, fly fisherman, hunter, master scuba diver, mountaineer, and he's taken advanced courses on Mount Rainier in crevice crossing and rescue, as well as avalanche survival and recovery. He's well-traveled. He spent a summer studying in Mexico. He's had vacation trips to Japan, Ireland, Iceland, France, Switzerland, Germany, and skiing in Austria, Colorado, Vermont, and Canadian Rockies. Wow. Yes, he does work. Okay. After leaving the Navy, he has worked with a small number of national and international organizations, and he's currently with a division of company specializing in STEM capture. He is engaged, living back in Virginia for the past 4 years, and he has a home in London, so he is a home body here. He's close to us. Welcome, thank you, and the surprise is?
Yes, as you know, the Paul Harris Fellow, we can award it to someone, and I'm gonna award mine on behalf of my son, Alex Hines.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Here, I'll get a picture of yours.
I've been trying to give this to him for about 8 months. He thought he was gonna come to Arkansas, and did not. And then we realized this was the best time.
I love being part of surprises.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Of course, there's no pressure to join our club, Alex.
I know.
He's already got the talk.
I know. we love it. So much to bring to us. All right. So the part we are waiting for here today, we have Dr. Sherri Yoder as our speaker today. I'm going to introduce Sherri. Dr. Sherri left her post as a clinical psychologist to serve as the founder and executive director of Thriving Thoughts Global, a 501c3 that equips women with self-directed, sustainable thought practices that improve their mental, emotional, and relationship well-being. She strives to shift cultural narratives about mental health from reactive, treatment-driven, and stigma-perpetuating messages to education and conversation that prioritizes proactive mental health care and mental ill health prevention. Dr. Sherri believes that women who are the chief influencers of their children, partners, friends, workplaces, and communities are the agents of change necessary to effect this critical shift in attitudes and approach toward mental health. In her own words, a woman who changes her world changes the world. The message she has for us today is for men and women. And Sherri, you may recognize, for some of you who've been in the club a while, used to be a member with our club. And so she is back here to share her message with us today. Sherri, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hold on a
Thank
second.
you, Lori.
Hold on a second, we're gonna do the sound for you.
Let me know if you can hear me okay.
Speak again.
Go ahead, Sherri. Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Can you guys hear me all right? Yeah, okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Lori, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say yes to being here with you today. It's been a long time, and I'm just honored to share this space with you. And if anybody has any questions, you can drop them in the chat, or I guess maybe just unmute, or I don't know how you guys are doing things with the hybrid model. But anyway, I wanted to share something with you today since Lori so graciously invited me and I said yes. I wanted to share with you something about yeses today. I've been learning a lot about yeses in my life, and I've been learning about how much I've underestimated my yeses and the things that I say yes to. And so I hope that this message, as you hear it today, as you hear some of the lessons that I've learned, that you'll apply it to lessons in your own life, that you'll apply it to your own yeses, maybe yeses that you've said in the past, yeses you're considering today, and yeses you will consider in the future. So yeses are a tricky thing. I think we do underestimate them, but here's the problem with that. The problem with us underestimating yeses is that our yeses of today shape our life tomorrow. In fact, I was walking my dogs one morning and I thought, there were some things going on in my life that I just really didn't want to be a part of my life tomorrow. And the one thing I said to myself was, well, Sherri, if that's the case, if you don't want these things to be a part of your life tomorrow, you have to not say yes to them. In other words, say no to them. You have to not say yes to them today, right? So even though our yeses have authority over the shape our life takes tomorrow, we have authority over our yeses today. And so I'd like to share with you 3 of the many lessons I've learned. Take about 15 minutes of your time. 3 of the lessons that I have learned that I hope will encourage and inspire you with regard to taking authority over our yeses. And the first is this, that no yes is wasted. So I'm going to take you guys way back to 1982 when I was in 3rd grade. I was 8 years old and I had a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Patterson. And I've since tried to look her up and to no avail. I cannot find her. I'd love to find her because she was a catalyst in shaping, actually, probably without Mrs. Patterson, I probably wouldn't be right here speaking in front of you today. So Mrs. Patterson noticed a couple of things about me. She noticed, one, that I had poor vision and I was squinting at the board. We had chalkboards then, not smart boards. So I was squinting at the board and it was affecting my learning. She also noticed something else, that I had a significant speech impediment. Many people don't know this, but I spent a year or a year and a half in daily speech therapy because of Mrs. Patterson. But it was really because of an opportunity she gave me to say yes. Now, at 8 years old, I'm not sure who exactly has authority to say yes over what happens to them. I'm not aware of any emancipated 8-year-olds, although in our culture, who knows, that could be the next thing. But I remember her sitting me down with my parents and she said, Sherri, would you be willing to participate in speech therapy? Now, this was like a double blow to my self-esteem, by the way, because not only did I have to get pulled out of the classroom to go to speech therapy, which I think is much more prolific today and understanding, there's an understanding of that among peers and teachers. But back then, in 1982, it wasn't so much very accepted. In fact, I felt very different being pulled out of the classroom. But I decided to say yes. And here's why I decided to say yes. One, because I knew my parents were going to make me do it, right? But two, because I knew it was going to improve my learning. And indeed, it did over time. Now, let me tell you guys, I had to get some really ugly glasses. Like these are kind of hip 2022 glasses. You might not think they're hip. I do, so I'm going to stick with that. But 1982, not so much. I think they were like the kind that had the frames with the frame down here and it kind of looped up over your ears, you know? Yeah, they weren't very great. So I had to wear those to class and I had to be pulled out of class, which was probably a saving grace because I said yes to speech therapy. But because I said yes, and because this is the first lesson I would later learn, that took me many, many years of putting myself on the couch to figure out. But that speech therapy set me up for a future that I didn't know I would have. It set me up for some yeses that I would eventually answer the call to. And one of those is being a national speaker and now being the face of a nonprofit organization and being in a position where I very often have to share, not have to, get to. I remember that one from Brett Herbeck. I get to share. And had I not said yes to speech therapy, I probably would not sound so clear to you. And so it helped me improve my communication. And that yes to speech therapy is not wasted. So I say that to you because sure, that might seem like an insignificant thing to you, but for all of us, there are bigger things that are a part of our past that we've said yes to, that maybe we feel are wasted. I'll go one bigger for you, by the way. So I said yes to a relationship a while back, hasn't been too long now. It ended about 3 years ago. I said yes to a relationship that ended up creating a life that was anything but the life that I wanted. And so at some point I had to stop saying yes to that. And I did, thank God. And I burned the ships and I set about saying yes to the things that would create the life that I wanted. But even that, yes, even though that yes led to a lot of grief, a lot of heartache, shame, disappointment, discouragement, you name it. It also led to a book, by the way, Breakup Breakthroughs. So there's a little, monetary profit there too, you can say yes to. But I said yes to this. And because of that, it's not wasted. It taught me a lot about myself. So whatever's in your past, if it's a simple thing like going to speech therapy and you're wondering, why did I have to do that? Or if it's a bigger thing, like a major loss that you suffered, there is no yes that is wasted. That's the first lesson that I've learned. The second lesson that I learned about not underestimating yeses and taking authority over them is that a once yes doesn't have to be an always yes. Let me share with you what I mean. Some of you know, so I used to practice as a clinical psychologist. In fact, I think it was in 2012, when I decided to kind of hang out my own shingle and get established in a community. And I discovered the wonderful, flourishing town of Front Royal, Virginia. And I moved in and you guys welcomed me with open arms. I became a Rotarian at the time. And then things started to shift for me. Why? Because I started to say yes to something that I had no idea was even going to be an option. So practicing as a clinical psychologist, I was helping people. I was saying yes to doing what I had set out to do, which was to help people, right? To encourage people. But here's what happened along the way, you guys. And some of you may not even know this story, but along the way, I started to recognize some commonalities among the individuals that I had the profound privilege of being a part of their life. I started to recognize some common human experiences. And one of the struggles or I guess struggles is the right word, that I started to face was the fact that I couldn't connect people. There's this pesky little thing called HIPAA where you can't connect people with one another. And I saw this profound need to connect people with one another in a real way that let them know this truth that I espouse and teach now through my nonprofit and through my personal thought coaching clients. And that is that I believe there's nothing wrong with you, that we all have these common human emotional experiences. And if we really, really want to reduce stigma around mental health, we need to start talking in terms like we all have one. And it's not just reserved for those people or for some people. And so as I was struggling with this kind of crisis of conscience, I've got this practice, I'm doing things that are really, really good, right? But I've got this window open and it's calling me and it's asking me to say yes. And I remember our beloved Jim Eastham was sitting in my therapy office with me one day, not as a client. And I was sharing with him what I wanted to do and that I wanted to go talk to people who would never come to see a shrink. I mean, you guys, Front Royal is small, right? I used to have people coming into my office like this, like on my front porch on Chester Street, like this, like hiding, like, I don't want anybody to see that I'm going to see Dr. Sherri. And that wasn't like that with everybody, but I wanted to come to talk to people to normalize mental health for everyone. And I knew I had to get out of that role to do it. And as I was sharing that with him, when you say yes, this is a sub lesson. You can experience some unintended or unanticipated consequences. And Jim expressed concern for me at that time, as a number of other people did, family members, friends, expressed concern for what I was doing because it just seemed so far-fetched. It just seemed so out of, I was supposed to be a clinical psychologist. I went to school for all of that time, but wait, remember, no yes is wasted, right? And so I appreciated his concern. And even I started to question myself. It wasn't just other people around me that were concerned about me. When you say yes to something that doesn't quite fit, that doesn't quite make sense, people are going to question you and you're going to question yourself. In fact, for a couple of years, I started to retreat. I started to avoid my own yes. In that regard, I didn't want to do it. I was fighting tooth and nail against myself to not do it. And I started saying no to the thing that I knew I needed to say yes to. Eventually, I came to my senses, thank God. And I realized that I could shift my yes from being a clinical psychologist to a new yes, to a new message that I didn't have to stay in the treatment world. I could shift to the prevention world. And so I share that with you. I actually wrote a little book, by the way. It's a mini ebook. I gave it to Lori to read, to check out. It's called Making Your Yes Count. And it's 6 questions that I've learned to ask myself before I say yes now. And so if you want to check that out, it's on Amazon. But I say that to say that a lot of times we say yes, or we don't say yes to the new yes. We keep saying yes to the old yes. That sounds convoluted, I know. But we keep saying yes to the old yes out of tradition, for the sake of tradition, because that's either what we should do, what we're supposed to do, or it's what we've always done, right? And so I encourage you, don't say yes to your current yes or to an old yes that you've always said yes to, just because it's what you've always done. In fact, like the browser on your internet browser, there's like a little circle with an arrow that you can click and it refreshes. Refresh your yes, right? Your current yes doesn't have to be your yes of tomorrow. It might be, and that's great if you give it conscious, intentional thought. Refresh it and study it. And finally, the third lesson that I want to share with you that I learned about taking authority over my yeses, because I want to shape my tomorrow. I don't want my tomorrow to be shaped by happenstance. I want it to be shaped with intention. And so that means I need to take authority over my yeses. The clearer you become, the clearer I've become on what I want my life to look like tomorrow, knowing full well that I have zero influence over actual tomorrow, right? The only influence I have is over today. So if I know what I want my life to look like tomorrow, and for a lot of us, honestly, we know what we don't want it to look like, right? Like sometimes we're in seasons of our life that we know what we don't want to be a part of our life. And that's fine too. But I encourage you to envision, what do you want your life to look like tomorrow? Do you want it to be filled with more service to others? Do you want it to be filled with more family time? Do you want it to be filled with more romance between you and your partner? Do you want it to be filled with this new idea that is kind of burning in the back of your mind? What do you want your tomorrow to be filled with? And to confront yourself with that, because here's the truth for me. And it's my estimation that many of you have found this true for yourselves as well, that when you become clear about what you want your tomorrow to look like, your yeses today become much easier and much fewer. So in the spring of 2020, I was still living in Virginia. I was still living in Front Royal at the time, and my father was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And my parents live in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and that is where I live now, not in Chambersburg, but in South Central. I live about 20 minutes from them. But at the time, I knew that what I wanted my life to look like tomorrow was to spend more time with my parents. And good Lord, why did that take an esophageal cancer diagnosis for me to get that to click? Doesn't matter, because no yes is wasted and no yes is too late. Every yes is perfect in its own timing. So I moved. I didn't even consider all of the potential drawbacks to saying yes. I was so clear on the fact that I wanted my tomorrow to be filled with more time with my parents that my yes to moving became crystal clear. There was no question about it. And so I did. Since then, fast forward, much chemo, much radiation, and esophagectomy surgery. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate your feedback. I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments, you guys. After all of that and an esophagectomy, my dad is well. Thank the Lord. He is doing fine miraculously. They caught it at stage 2, which is virtually unheard of. And so he's doing well. And I'm thankful that even just last evening, my parents came out to support me at my first community event for my nonprofit. And wow, what a blessing. No regret in that yes. And when you get a clear picture of your tomorrow and what you want that to look like, I encourage you, do not underestimate your yeses. Do not let your yeses become passive. Do not let your yeses happen to you. Take authority over your yeses, because what you say yes to today will be a part of your tomorrow. Thank you very much.
For years, for seasons, and that may not be where you fit anymore. And maybe you try another role, or maybe you try and hand off to someone else. So think about your yeses, think about what she said, and just explore your options in Rotary. It's also really good for your life. Think about, where your yeses count and make them count. Life and work life as well. Great. Do we have a 50-50, Aaron? We have a 50-50 drawing today?
I did not.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Our next meeting is right back here next week, and we're going to be hearing from the Warren County Fire Department. So please come see what they have for us. They're going to update us on current events and future planning. So please come back and hear about that. And just stand with me and recite the 4-way test. Other
Things we think, say, or do.
First
is the truth. Second, is the fair law of concern. Third, will it build goodwill in our friendships.
Fourth, will be beneficial to all. Thank you. Have a great week.